Welcome back to part 3 of my little Christmas project here, and it's actually been 2 days since I last made part 2, so I may have forgotten what I talked about because, as you know me, I'm not into the whole fast forward editing thing. One day I might teach myself, and what I have done is the board that I showed you, which is what everything will be attached to, has been drilled, and I put a small hole in, and I've threaded my lights up through the back. Now, as you can see, looking at this, they are one big, she says, dropping everything, spirally tangled mass. And I'm not going to fasten the battery pack onto the back yet, because I don't want my board to be all wobbly and skewy. And I've threaded them through, and I'm making sure that they still work, because you wouldn't want to go to all that trouble and discover that your lights didn't work. Now, I know people would use hot glue to fix these down, and yeah, that would be quick. You would get a lot of hot glue strands everywhere, but because they're such tiny little seed bulbs, I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to get up to my camera here. It's probably the furthest away I've ever managed to get my camera. I'm actually going to fix mine down with glue dots. So from this tangled mass here, I'm going to work my way around the board. I don't actually care if I can see any wires or anything. And I'm going to use glue dots to fix those down. And then I'm going to come back. And at that point, I'm going to be able to drop the camera again so that you can have a close look. So I'm just going to use glue dots, and I am going to stick my wire down. Okay, so I sorted out the tangled mass, and as you can see, I've kind of like gone square and then spiraled it around. You can see those glue dots there that are holding the wires down, and glue dots are great things. They're resin based and they do cure. So what you might think might look a little bit squishy and soft now and still movable, that's a good thing, is going to cure nicely for you and hold your project in place. If you think you've got sort of like bits sticking up, if you're going to attempt to do one of these, just get yourself a pick that I usually use on dies or something, and just pick off one of your glue dots and stick it down. Like, I think I could perhaps pop one here. What I haven't done is I haven't put the glue dot anywhere near a bulb. It's just on the copper wire. And the reason I did that is because I'm not sure how it would react to glass, if it would affect the bulb. So I'm just putting them down onto the wire. And as I said, it doesn't bother me if I see some of the wires. I actually think string lights are quite pretty. So I'm okay with that. If I think I need to put any more down, I certainly will. And of course, everything that's going to go on here is going to hide those glue dots, or it's going to help for them to adhere down a little bit better if they catch over the surface of one of them. So what I'm going to do, because I haven't fastened it on, and I will fix this on right at the end, and that is test them. So that's the kind of pattern that we've got here. And I do have, it's all right, everything's sliding off my table today. One of my die cuts that I've layered up here, I've done this one and it's got several layers, but it's going to go up on foam pads so that you're still going to get the light and the illumination coming out of all of the decoration. Now, if you watched part 1, see that one's caught onto that glue dot, which is absolutely fine. As I say, it's going to help these to stick too. You will know that there is a small 1/4 inch frame that goes around these shadow boxes, and I took that into account when putting my lights on. And if I reach behind me, I can find it. Here it is. This is what comes with your shadow box, so that you've got that elevation the glass sits on top of this, and then you're allowed to build your depth up inside. So I can see here that I've got plenty of space all around the edge, and I also know that that's where I really need to be fixing all of my die cuts. Now I can actually work with this on, and that may be a good idea, and begin to sort of like build up where exactly I want to have my things. Like, I know that I want ivy sort of like all over it. It's a really good filler. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go off and grab all of my die cuts, and let's start building the picture. And I'm also going to drop the camera so that you can see. Right, so ivy is the great filler on anything when you're doing a plant, vase of flowers, whatever it is that you're doing. You'll find that ivy is the one that cheaply fills and always comes to the rescue. Now, I haven't made this one dimensional, and it's just basically attached to any glue dots that may be in the way here. That's the only way that I'm doing that. Now, I do really want to pick things up because it's not a great day here today. I'm going to try and adjust my camera a bit. And so that is my first piece of ivy down. And I need to make sure that this is on, because as you know, we're working within the frames of that 1/4 inch divider here that holds the glass up off the whole thing. Now these I'm doing single, and I'm using Dollar Tree foam, and so I'm just going to go in there and pop that into the corner without pushing that out too far. And I've got a big piece of ivy there. I'm going to pick this up in a second, and I'm going to go for another trail of ivy. And as I said, when you're putting stuff together, it's wonderful to have fillers like this, because you can put them anywhere you want, and then you can even go in between things afterwards and fill them out even more. So if you're going to buy this die set and it's matching papers, then I would say ivy is a good one, because it's going to be your friend. I'm going to go with another piece of ivy. This one is popped up on pads, and I'm going to pop that there. I'm going to move this down. Hopefully you can see a little bit better. And we're just building up. Now, I do have this one, which is kind of like a strawberry blossom that I could pop under there. And as I said before, I'm not worried about seeing this backboard. I quite like it. And so I think I might put a couple of foam pads onto here and utilize this. And I do actually think it's a lovely one. I don't think I've got enough space for that one, so I'm just going to chop that one so that it will fit. And then I always stick my my used pads back on their doodah so that I can use it after. And then I'm going to put a little bit there. I'm going to peel that off. It's quite literally like making a giant card, isn't it? Where you've done all your die cutting and whatnot, and you just want to arrange it. So I'm going to fill that area there and pop that in. Can you see how that's starting to build up? Let me pick that up. And you've got a little bit of that baseboard sticking out. And then if I go back to my lights, you've got your lights coming through behind it. Right, so what I'm going to do, because I'm watching the clock and I'm already at 10 minutes on this part 3, and I'm going to carry on putting the ivy down, and then I'll be back to show you that. So quickly back just to give you an update on my progress here, and that's how far I've got. You can see I've put quite a few die cuts down there. If I can move this over here, you can see the bottom. And then this corner down here doesn't have much going on in it at the moment. But I am kind of like concentrating at the top because the center is where I'm going to put my birds, and I do have one here, um, here, and I kind of like I want to be able to center my birds because they're kind of a feature. They're going to be the only animals within the environment sort of thing. But I want to go in now with some variegated ivy because I do like to build things up in layers. And one of the things I suggest, you can see where I've got foam pads here, is if you are going to put one of these together, don't cover the whole thing with glue or the whole thing with foam pads, because you never know where you're going to want to twine something around or tuck something under. And if the whole thing was covered in foam there, you're not going to be able to do that. Right now, I've just tucked that variegated leaf there, as you can see. I've got some of the flowering ivy that comes on that die, and I've dotted that around, but I still think this little space here is a little bit empty, and you can see I need to start coming and working down into this area. But I just wanted to give you a quick preview so that I'm not just showing up and saying, "Yoo, here's my finished project." So I've got variegated ivy now going over the top of that dark green to give it the feeling that it's all sort of like wrapping and twining itself around wildly, which is, it's basically what I want. It's a country sort of like flower kind of scene. And as you can see, it's still lighting up, and we can see where all of those little elements are there. Right, I'm going to carry on with ivy and I will be back. So I've actually started building up the left a little bit there. I just wanted to see if I'd put down enough ivy as a background for this region. And I think I have. And I added a couple of mushrooms. This is all one die, but I decided to cut it because there's a little piece of grass that I want to pop in there. And this little space looks a bit sparse, but the idea for that space is actually the bird's nest, and I'm wondering if it's going to look okay there. And then of course you've got mommy bird who's going to come in to feed the baby that's in the nest, and I'm not sure if I want the mommy bird really close in there so that it draws attention, or if I want it a little bit away going in. So I think probably I'm going to do mommy bird a little bit closer, and this is what I was saying about not gluing everything down, because it means she can be slightly behind there if I want her to be, or she can be here. Now I can also lower this down and pop it behind the mushrooms and the foxglove a little bit, and I think that looks nice. And then mommy bird can be there, and I actually think that looks better, and that's where I'm going to stick that. So I'm doing that, and as you can see from down here, I've still got lots of ivy to go, so I'll be back in a bit. So I popped in that little piece of grass that I was telling you about, and it just gives another dimension there in front of those mushrooms and that ivy. And there is mommy bird with her baby in the nest. So I've done that, and now I really do have to go back to ivy. I mean, it's really tempting when you've got so many gorgeous flowers that you just want to play around with and start popping in. But if you don't fill up the background, it's not going to be much good. But the lights still work. Wouldn't it be awful if we got to the end and they didn't? Right, I'll be back in a minute. So I decided to give you and myself a little visual break because this is quite long. But I would start putting in some flowers and then filling in between and over with more ivy. You can see here I've got these little berry brambles that are growing up, and I've got the wild rose, and I've still got spaces, but I do know that I want to pop my little bird in there, and I'm just going to find my little bird. I'm sure I just put it somewhere. See, this is what I'm like. I go off on a tangent. I found it. and it's sitting on these gorgeous gentian blue flowers. And so I'm thinking to either have it there or to build it into this region and then fill this area up here. In fact, I do quite like it where it is, but then I also have to take into account that I want to pop in a daffodil, and I'm also going to put in some poppies. So it's like, is everything going to clash? And then, of course, I want my fuchsia to be hanging down, which is what fuchsias do. So I do quite like that little configuration actually. So I'm just going to peel the sticky pads off the fuchsia first. And once again, don't go putting sticky pads everywhere, because you still want to be able to tuck little things in and out. So I'm going to go for that right there, I think. I think that's nice. It looks kind of natural. Everything's all sort of wild and grown together. It's like a secret little garden in a frame. And then I want this there. And I will pop these down, then I'll go off and pause and continue doing my ivy. I'm always conscious of people having to sit down and wait a long time. I mean, I know you've got the fast forward button, but I'd rather make a shorter video because it's quicker for me to upload. So I'm thinking there, or I'm thinking there. I think maybe there. Yeah. And then I know that I've got to fill that space in. I've still got enough height between what's going on here and my poppies and also my daffodils. I'll move that up so that you can see the bottom of the tray. So this is quite a bold feature, this daffodil. And I may actually make this one 3D by cutting another one and layering the blooms up on top of it. It's a bit like the three-dimensional foxglove that I've got there. It's really lovely and chunky. And of course I've also got lots of little grasses and things that I intend to use. So I've got my daffodil just sort of like in contact with the bird, which I think looks a little bit naturalistic. And then I'm going to put a poppy in, and I'm going to keep those together because poppies do tend to grow in clumps. So, and I am going to add some more mushrooms. So I'm going to pop that one there. So mushrooms and more grasses towards the front. And then I'm going to stick this one right beside it, because I am going to break it up with some grasses. Even though it's an identical flower, I still, you know, I'm kind of umming and ahhing actually. And before you press your pads down too tightly, you can, she says, hopefully peel them up. That one's stuck down. I'll just move that gently. And I think I am just going to double layer my poppy. I think the fact that it looks identical right next to each other just makes it look a little bit awkward. So I'm just going to layer that. So I've got a chunky poppy there. And what I might do is die cut one and just cut the pieces out so that I can have little poppy heads tilted at different angles or something like that. And of course the next big feature that I've got is a bluebell or a squilia. Now, I've got blue going on here and blue going on here, and I don't want to do that. And this is how I actually behave in my own garden, believe it or not. I go around looking at colours and I think, no, I don't want all that colour together. So I'm going in between this bit here, going behind the daffodil. And to me, that looks more sort of like country garden. So I'm going to be sticking that one there. And I'll be back when I've done a bit more. Okay, I think I've finished sticking everything down that I want to. And I'm going to try and get close here. You can see the wires here onto the, what are they called? Glue dots, yeah. You know what I'm like. And I do apologise for my croaky throat. And I've just pieced in everything that I want to. Now, there's one of the birdies. This particular store does little animals and things as well. So I think I might get like the little ladybirds and the bees, and I think there's a little set of rabbits as well. So I have got just a few sort of like little spaces where I can still put things. I'm going to put this down so I'm not moving it around because I want it to focus. So I've got that sort of like as down to the bottom as I can get it, I think. I can scoot it along there and then you can see the very, very edge. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it back in its frame and then light it up and see what we've got. And I'm going to try and take a photograph of it so that I can have it at the beginning of this video. That's what I'll attempt to do. That'll be a bit technological for me, but I'll be back in a second. So I've actually got it back in its frame now, and you can see that that shadow box there gives it some great dimension. And as I said in the very first one, best time to get them is when they're on sale, and they come in a 2-pack, so they work out at about, I don't know, $6 or $7 each. So now is the big event. Let's see what happens. And there you have it. Isn't that cute? I really love that. That's going to go on my bedside table, and that is going to be my pretty little nightlight. Well, when I say little, it's 12 by 14 inches, but I really want you to see the full image of this. So I'm going to go away and photograph it and either insert it at the beginning or at the very end of this video. Now, as you know, I did record this in advance for Christmas Day. I do hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you're having a wonderful Christmas, and if you're on your own, I hope it's a wonderful day, and God bless from me. I will be back on the 28th of December as usual with my cards and whatnot and my smaller tutorials. But as I say, have a wonderful day, and if you're on your own, absolutely bless your heart. Bye.